Hello everyone and welcome back to Clover Knows Pets. I'm Clover and today I'm going to be giving you a complete care guide for spiny mice, more specifically Egyptian spiny mice. Anyways, let's get started. First up, tank size. Now the general rule is you start with a 40-gallon and then add 10 gallons per extra spiny. A 40-gallon can hold 4. So basically, if you have anywhere from 1 to 4 spinies, they can be kept in a 40-gallon. If you have 5, they can be kept in no smaller than a 50-gallon. If you have 6, no smaller than a 60-gallon, etc. Keep in mind that more space is always better for spinies, and you can never have a setup that is too large. You can, however, have a setup that is too small. Any tank or cage under 40 gallons will be too small to permanently house your spinies, even if you only have 1 or 2. In terms of type of caging, or setups, or housing, as you've seen in this video, aquariums tend to work best. You can also use front opening setups. This is not for spinies, by the way. Night angel cages and the equivalent also work well. Moving on to bedding. Now, I did make a video specifically on their bedding, which will go more in depth. That is linked in the description down below and in the Spiny Mouse Care playlist. But basically what you want is a split setup. I also have a video on that, but all it means is that your setup is, well, split. I'm using a piece of corrugated plastic, but there are other alternatives. Basically, on one side, you're going to want a sand mixture. Make sure you are not using calcium sand or repti sand or whatever, but instead actual either quartz sand or natural play sand. And then on the other side, you're going to mix a paper bedding for rodents with aspen shavings. Make sure you are not using hardwood, softwood, or pine or cedar shavings. None of those work, only aspen. The other kinds can cause respiratory issues. Anyways, mix that in, and then you're going to add either alfalfa hay, timothy hay, or orchard grass hay. I find orchard grass works best if you're looking to keep down the dust. I go into more detail and specify the quantities of each in the bedding video. But yeah, basically you're going to mix that up, and then you want to have at least 4 inches. Adding more is great, but 4 is the minimum, and then you're done. As for their wheels, you can use 1 wheel for up to 4 spinies. This is the brand that I'm using. I really love this one. It's a completely silent acrylic wheel, but you can also use wooden wheels. Plastic wheels are normally not recommended. Whatever wheel you end up using, I highly recommend you invest in a high quality one, due to the fact that plastic ones and low quality ones tend to break simply because spinies run too fast. So keep that in mind when buying your wheel or wheels. Just repeating from what I originally said, you can use up to 4 spinies can use 1 wheel. If you have more than 4 spinies, you do need to get a second wheel. If you have more than 8, you need to get a third wheel, etc. Next up is diet. Now, I'm not going to go too in depth on this, either, as I have an entire video dedicated to making their food, which is also in the playlist. But I will let you know that there is currently no commercial diet available for spiny mice that fits their nutritional needs. In fact, there's actually no rodent mix in general, which means that you do have to make their own food. A large majority of it is going to be their dry mix, which should be fed every other day. And you're going to feed a 1/4 tablespoon per spiny. What I do is called scatter feeding, which is as simple as it sounds. Done. Scattering their food allows for natural foraging and makes them work for their food, which is a great boredom breaker. But a dry mix is not the only food that spinies need. They also need fresh fruit, veggies, and live insects. Some good options include dubia roaches, superworms, mealworms, silkworms for live insects, broccoli, carrot, cauliflower, bell peppers, spinach for veggies, and apple, banana, kiwi, mango for fresh fruit. Insects should be fed around 3 to 4 times a week, veggies 3 to 2, and fruit once. As far as water goes, a standard reptile dish works well. Water bottles are not recommended, but can be used temporarily if needed. Moving on to the last category of hides and enrichment. I recommend having at least 2 hides on each side of your setup. As you can see, I do have more just to keep down on aggression and such, but this is not mandatory. Some great options are basically any toy that would be safe for a hamster or a gerbil. Oh gosh, sorry, hide, not toy. Along with things like cork hides, toilet paper tubes, reptile hides, and coconut hides. As far as enrichment goes, spinies love climbing, so providing things like twigs, sticks, ladders, and bridges for your spinies are great. Along with that, natural sprays from things like millet or oat or quinoa work great, and so do foraging toys marketed to mice and rats. One thing I did forget to mention when talking about diet is that spinies need bark. And I don't mean to climb on, I mean to eat. This can be provided through apple and willow chew toys, birch chunks, and climbing materials. Back onto the topic of enrichment, it is important to fill up their space and make their setup crowded, as it makes them feel safe and allows for them to explore their enclosure, feeling safer. That being said, the larger your setup is, the more clutter and supplies you're going to need to include, but along with that, the more enrichment your spinies get. Anyways, that is the end of the video. Thanks for watching, hope you learned something, and I will see you next time.